Mosab Abu Toha is a Palestinian poet, short story writer, and essayist from Gaza. People have asked him why. He keeps going back to Gaza. Why, you get to America, why do you go back to Gaza? And he answers, because Gaza is home. Abu Toha, like all Gazans, might be stateless, but he is not homeless. When I try to see Abu Toha's poetry and its relation to other poetry, I think of June Jordan along these lines of home, writing that she does not want to write about the atrocities visited upon Palestinians because she needs to, quote, speak about living room where the land is not bullied and beaten to a tombstone. And of course, I think of Mahmoud Darwish, who wrote, I have learned and dismantled all the words in order to draw from them a single word, home. Let us welcome Mosab to our home. Our homes share a single word and honor him with our attention. Mosab Abu Toha.
Okay. Oh. Thank you so much, everyone. 3 books with me. I can't thank you enough, first of all, for coming and for showing your solidarity, not with me, but from the place I escaped from. I'm sure that if it wasn't for the efforts that were put to get me out of the Israeli dungeons, I spent about 51 hours there, but I know personally many people who were taken from inside school shelters. They were sheltering in with their wives and their children and their parents, etc., and who died there. I know Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, who is one of the best surgeons in the Gaza Strip, who was taken from inside Al-Auda, means return, Al-Auda hospital in North Gaza, and he died under torture just 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I can't imagine myself being alive if I was still in Gaza, because many people, not because they were poets or they were surgeons or they were activists or journalists, but because they were in Gaza. The only guilt that they are faced with is that they were born in Gaza, they were born in Palestine. So anyway, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone, and I continue to say this. One day, the children who are now 2 years or 3 years old, who are hopefully will be surviving this genocide, when they grow up, maybe 20 years later, they will go to the internet, they will go to the archive and see what people, we here, what we were doing when they were being killed. So you should be proud of what you are doing. I know we can't do a lot, but we can gather here. I can read, you can read, I listen, you listen. This is, I think, the most powerful thing to do, which is to gather here. Thank you so much to Jonathan and Denise and everyone involved, Susie and Joe for the invitation this morning. Really grateful to be part of this series, and I would like to welcome the translator of my book into the Spanish, Jocelyn Almeida, and one of my professors at Syracuse who happens to be visiting, Bruce Smith. Saying thank you again for coming. And there's so many other friends that I know and I don't know. So I will be reading some poems from my first poetry collection, which happens to be, so not this copy, but I have this copy in Syracuse. It was the only book that survived with me because all our house, the 4-story building, collapsed. It was bombed by the Israeli bombs. So this book, the copy that I have in Syracuse, was the only book that survived with me out of the so many books that I collected over the past 7 years, many of which were signed by authors, friends. And then I'll follow by reading some poems from my forthcoming collection. So these are the proof galleys of the book. So I'll be reading some of the poems that were written during the ongoing genocide. Okay. So the first poem, maybe many of you know, is called Palestine A to Z. And unfortunately, many of these poems are being reacted in Palestine, in Gaza. You can read a poem or maybe one line, and you can go to Instagram and see it happening again. Okay, I'll not talk a lot. I'll just read. Can you hear me like this? Alhamdulillah, thank God. There are no drones. This is good thing. Palestine, I'll read just some sections from the long poem. Palestine A to Z. A. An apple that fell from the table on a dark evening, when man-made lightning flashed through the kitchen, the streets, and the sky, rattling the cupboards and breaking the dishes. Am is the linking verb that follows I in the present tense, when I am no longer present, when I am shattered. B, a book that doesn't mention my language or my country and has maps of every place except for my birthplace, as if I were an illegitimate child on Mother Earth. Borders are those invented lines, drawn with ash on maps and soon into the ground by bullets. C, Gaza is a city where tourists gather to take photos next to destroyed buildings or graveyards. A country that exists only in my mind. Its flag has no room to fly freely, but there is space on the coffins of my countrymen. K. My grandfather kept the key to his house in Jaffa in 1948. He thought they would return in a few days. His name was Hassan. The house was destroyed. Others built a new one in its place. Hassan died in 1986. The key has rusted, but it still exists somewhere, longing for the old wooden door. In Gaza, you don't know what you are guilty of. It feels like living in a Kafka novel. M. Marhaba means hi or welcome. We say marhaba to everyone we see. It's like a warm hug. We don't use it, however, when soldiers or their bullets or bombs visit us. Such guests not only leave their ship, but also take everything we have. My dad used to prepare milk for us with some kirshalla before school. I was in 3rd grade and my mother was at hospital taking care of my brother. My brother died in 2016. N. In 2014, about 2,139 people were killed. 579 of them were children. Around 11,100 were wounded, and around 13,000 buildings were destroyed. I lost 3 friends, but it's not about numbers. Even years, they are not numbers. A nail is used to join 2 pieces of wood or to hang things on the wall. In 2009, the Israelis targeted an ambulance with a nail bomb near my house. Some were killed. I saw many nails on our neighbor's newly painted wall. R. I was born in November. My mother told me she was walking on the beach with my father. It turned stormy and began to rain. My mother felt pain, and an hour later she gave birth to me. I love the rain and the sea, the last 2 things I heard before I came into this horrible world. Okay. Why? Tell me why. Why? Jaffa, are you fixing it? Okay. There is some echo, right? Gaza, Palestine, Jaffa. Okay, I think it's good. No. Jaffa is my daughter's name. I put my ears near her mouth when she speaks, and I hear Jaffa's sea waves lapping against the shore. I look in her eyes and I see my grandparents' footsteps still imprinted on the sand. How did you leave Gaza? Do you plan to return? You should stay in the US. You mustn't think of going back to Gaza. Things people always tell me. Okay, next poem is What is Home? So, before I was kidnapped on November 19th. So a few days before I was kidnapped, I posted this poem on my Instagram and told everyone, you should keep this poem, you should hang it on your walls, you should memorize it, etc. So a few days after I was kidnapped, and when I was released, I found that it was translated into about 30 languages. What is home? It is the shade of trees on my way to school before they were uprooted. It is my grandparents' black and white wedding photo before the walls crumbled. It is my uncle's prayer rug, where dozens of ants slept on wintry nights, before it was looted and put in a museum. It is the oven my mother used to bake bread and roast chicken before a bomb reduced our house to ashes. It is the cafe where I watched football matches and played. My child stops me. Can a four-letter word hold all of these? So this was written in I think 2021. Our house was not really reduced into ashes, but 3 years after that it was. So next time, be careful what you write. Okay. My grandfather and home. 1. So my grandfather is someone I never met because he passed away before even my father got married. So to me, he's something like Palestine, historic Palestine. It's something that was taken away before I was born. It's something that I hear stories about without seeing. Because the only place I know in Palestine is the Gaza Strip. And the first time I was able to leave Gaza was at the age of 27. So, my grandfather and home. 1. My grandfather used to count the days for return with his fingers. He then used stones to count. Not enough. He used the clouds, birds, people. Absence turned out to be too long. 36 years until he died. For us now, it is over 70 years. My grandpa lost his memory. He forgot the numbers, the people. He forgot home. 2. I wish I were with you, Grandpa. I would have taught myself to write you poems, volumes of them, and paint our home for you. I would have sewn you from soil a garment decorated with plants and the trees you had grown. I would have made you perfume from the oranges and soap from the sky's tears of joy. Couldn't think of something purer. 3. I go to the cemetery every day. I look for your grave, but in vain. Are they sure they buried you? Or did you turn into a tree? Or perhaps you flew with a bird to the nowhere? 4. I place your photo in an earthenware pot. I water it every Monday and Thursday at sunset. On Ramadan, I water it every day for 30 days or less or more. 5. How big do you want our home to be? I can continue to write poems until you are satisfied. If you wish, I can annex a neighboring planet or two. 6. For this home, I shall not draw boundaries, no punctuation marks. So in the third section, I look for your grave, but in vain. And the reason was I didn't know where his grave was really because there were no headstones. But now, even if there were headstones, even if I knew where my grandfather's uh, where his grave was, I wouldn't know after today because even the graveyards have been raised by the Israeli bulldozers and by the Israeli bombing. You can, you know. So the next poem is We Love What We Have. We love what we have. We love what we have no matter how little, because if we don't, everything will be gone. If we don't, we will no longer exist, since there will be nothing for us here. What's here is something that we are still building. It's something we cannot yet see, because we are part of it. Someday soon, this building will stand on its own, while we will be the trees that protect it from the fierce wind, the trees that will give shade to children sleeping inside or playing on swings. Next one is A Litany for One Land.
Sorry, folks. Just trying to get this sound right. It was perfect before. We're going to move you back, and then there might be less feedback.
Okay. So I should
Sorry
stand
about
here.
that.
Thank you. Right? Okay. I think it's better.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much. A Litany for One Land after Audre Lorde. For those living on the other side, we can see you. We can see the rain when it pours on our fields, on our valleys, and when it slides down the roofs of your modern houses built atop our homes. Can you take off your sunglasses and look at us here? See how the rain has flooded our streets, how the children's umbrellas have been pierced by a prickly downpour on their way to school. The trees you see have been watered with our tears. They bear no fruit. The red roses take their color from our blood. They smell of death. The river that separates us from you is just a mirage you created when you expelled us. It is one land. For those who are standing on the other side, shooting at us, spitting on us, how long can you stand there fenced by hate? Are you going to keep your black glasses on until you are unable to put them down? Soon, we won't be here for you to watch. It won't matter if you blink your eyes or not, if you can stand or not. You won't cross that river to make more lands because you will vanish into your mirage. You can't build a new colony on our graves. And when we die, our bones will continue to grow, to reach and intertwine with the roots of the olive and orange trees, to bathe in the sweet Yafa Sea. One day we will be born again when you are not there, because this land knows us. She is our mother. Because when we die, we are just resting in her womb until the darkness is cleared. For those who are not here anymore, we have been here forever. We have been speaking, but you never cared to listen. Thank you. So this poem, Shrapnel, Looking for Laughter, is about a family called At-Tanani family, which is a family of 6. The parents and their 4 children, the children younger than 10, they were killed in an airstrike in May 2021. The parents and their children were on their way out when they heard the airstrikes, but they were buried under the rubble of their building. So I wrote this poem to honor them, to honor every family, every children and their parents who were killed in airstrikes. Shrapnel, looking for laughter. The house has been bombed. Everyone is dead. The kids, the parents, the toys, the actors on TV. characters in novels, personas in poetry collections. The I, the he, and the she, no pronouns left, not even for kids when they learn parts of speech next year. Shrapnel flies in the dark, looks for the family's peals of laughter, hiding behind piles of disfigured walls and bleeding picture frames. The radio no longer speaks. Its batteries have burned. The antenna is broken. Even the broadcaster felt the pain when the radio was hit. Even we, hearing the bomb as it fell, threw ourselves to the ground, each of us counting the others around them. We were safe, but our hearts still ache. Thank you. So again, we were safe. That was in May 2021. And just on October 12th, we evacuated our house and walked to a refugee camp just 10 minutes by bike. I went by bike there, just 10 minutes away from us. And just 4 hours after we moved into a new house, another house which was 70 meters away from us was bombed. And 30 people got killed, and I was a witness. I filmed a mother and her daughter dangling from the roof, or from their bedroom. The half of both of them were outside, while the other was held by the rubble of what was bombed. So I saw this and I filmed it. Okay. I will read from the long poem, The Wounds, the longest maybe poem in the collection, which narrates my experience of getting wounded. In 2009, I was 16 years old. I had, I think, 4 or 3 pieces of shrapnel in my body. 2 stayed in my body for 8 months before getting them out in a surgery. So one of the pieces of shrapnel was just maybe 2 or 1 centimeter away from my windpipe. So I couldn't be here if just I moved my head. I said this in the poem. Sorry. The wounds. I think it was Bruce who once left me something on the driveway, date the wound or record your wounds, and I felt that it was an invitation to write a poem about my wounds. And that's the poem. Thank you, Bruce. The wounds. Israeli aggression against Gaza, December 27, 2008, January 18, 2009. A Saturday, first day of the week in Gaza, age 16, and after the first finals, I finished my Arabic exam. I liked Arabic as much as I liked English and soccer. I discussed my answers with my father. Home by noon, we stood on the roof of our house, watched the pigeons my father raised as a hobby. The limitless ceiling above us was part blue, part white, ships of clouds sailing slowly in windless sky. A series of explosions shook the house, the neighborhood, shook the earth. Words fell from my mouth, broke on my stiff, bare feet. Birds from nowhere flew aimlessly in the open sky. Some hid in trees. The pigeons in their big coop trembled. Rock pigeons, Egyptian pigeons, king pigeons, and Halabi Aleppo, from Aleppo, Halabi pigeons. A tiny egg fell. My answers must have fallen off the pages of my exam, maybe melting from fear. I saw black smoke rise from a building a few kilometers away, blacker than the ink on my exam sheets. We didn't hear the F-16s until they finished their strikes. They descended from the inferno. Dante hadn't mentioned them. About 8 F-60 aircraft with their bombs struck Gaza in unison, like a big drum roll announcing someone's death. But it was more than one death, I thought. It had to be. We hurried to the radio, that old dirty box that usually vomits blood and body parts into our ears, hospitals full of burning wounds, moans and a corpse, and a girl missing her leg, lying on a cot or a bloody floor. Over 200 policemen were killed and 700 were wounded in that dark hour. They had been training in police training facilities, and 2 million people worried for their lives. Do not think of us as numbers. It was the first day of the year when Israel targeted a neighborhood in Jabalia camp. A Hamas leader named Nizar Rayyan was killed. He was buried under the rubble of his house with 15 of his family, mostly his children, the youngest aged 2. On TV, I watched when a man pulled out a headless child, another with no arm or leg, so small I couldn't tell if a boy or a girl. Hate ignores such details. The houses were not Hamas. The kids were not Hamas. Their clothes and toys were not Hamas. The neighborhood was not Hamas. The air was not Hamas. Our eyes were not Hamas. The one who ordered the killing, the one who pressed the button, thought only of Hamas. Thank you. So I'll skip because there are just lots of stories in the poem about some friends who got killed. Uh, okay, I'll read this part about my fourth grade science teacher to honor him. His name is Arafa Abdel. Okay. We saw no one. So that's when we evacuated our house. So we always evacuated our house. We saw no one, only lonely houses and motionless sand. I saw some trees, green leaves beginning to pale. 200 meters away from our house, I saw a yellow Mercedes stopped in the middle of the road, nothing moving around it. It had some cooking gas canisters and sacks of wheat flour on its roof rack and in its trunk. An Israeli bomb had killed the driver and others. My friend's brother was one, Muhammad Abu Toha, age 18. Now I'm older than him. A few other passers-by were wounded near the car. The canisters had exploded, and the wheat spattered on the ground. Fresh bread baked with hot red blood and sand for yeasts. Next to it, a stalled ambulance. The paramedic was killed. Arafa Abdel was my fourth grade science teacher. He saw his blood and part of his I saw his blood and part of his scalp and hair next to the wheels of the ambulance. I was later told he had been on his way to help those injured in the attack on the yellow Mercedes. The Israelis had used a nail bomb in the attack. As a child, I never knew nails could kill people. I thought they were only used in construction. I was fooled. My science teacher never taught us how a nail bomb works. It wasn't part of his class, my poor teacher. No one came to rescue him. Dear teacher, did you know that after your burial, the Israelis killed 5 of your family in the cemetery? They didn't like how you were buried, it seems, and hoped your family could improve with practice. Okay, I'll go to the part when I was wounded. Barely 16. I'm on my way to the grocery shop to buy some damn eggs. I love boiled eggs. I see a large crowd of people gathering at the crossroad. I get curious. I walk toward them, but being small, I cannot see through the crowd. A yellow light hits. My head is split half open. This is how I feel. The light might help me see more clearly, I tell myself. Blood drips onto my eyelashes and hoodie. In the brief moments standing there, I'm asking myself, how come you can't stand while your head is slashed open? Everyone around me has collapsed to the ground, fallen like beads of sweat. I still stand. The picture freezes before me. The smell of gunpowder crawls into my lungs. Like a madman, I begin to run around. Someone gives me a tissue to wipe the blood on my left cheek and forehead. I need much more than that. It's not only my cheeks and forehead. The shrapnel has also blown holes in my neck and shoulder. I am no longer wearing my slippers. The 5 shekels have disappeared. I look around, people are rushing toward us. A vehicle approaches. Ambulance, it says. But there is no paramedic, first aid, and no bed to lie on. Come on, it's my first time being wounded. I get inside, someone throws a corpse in next to me. The body burnt, maybe no head. I don't look at it. The smell is so bad. I'm so sorry, whoever you are. It's the smell of death. I open the window for fresh air. The ambulance driver doesn't ask me who I am or how I am. At Ashifa Hospital, people in and out. I walk into the emergency room. No one looks at me. I sit on the ground next to other wounded people. Some lie on the floor like burnt matches. A nurse who checks on me sees the hole in my neck and the wounds on my face. She starts to touch my abdomen and back to see if there is any wound I cannot feel. An elevator carries my gurney upstairs to the radiology room. A doctor tends to my wounds. Someone is looking after me. An hour passes. My father and brother walk in. My brother points to the hole in my neck. Your index finger could fit in that hole. It's centimeters away from your windpipe. If, when the rocket fell, I had moved my head a bit to watch a bird on a tree or to count the clouds coming from the west side, the shrapnel might have cut through my throat. I wouldn't be married to my wife, father of 3 children, one born in America. My brother tells me, hearing the explosion and knowing you hadn't returned home yet, we assumed you were dead. We began searching for you in the morgue. I look around me. Relatives circle my bed. I watch them as they chat. I imagine them praying around my coffin. I wrote this poem in 2020 after I had surgery on my right ear. I had some problems with my ears. So I had a surgery on my right ear in Boston. So before the surgery, I wrote the first half to my doctor, to the surgeon, asking her for some things. And when I sent it to her, she liked it and she said, "You're a good poet." I felt encouraged to complete the poem. Okay, so this is the story. So things you may find hidden in my ear. 1. When you open my ear, touch it gently. My mother's voice lingers somewhere inside. Her voice is the echo that helps me recover equilibrium when I feel dizzy during my attentiveness. You may encounter songs in Arabic, poems in English I recite to myself, or a song I chant to the chirping birds in our backyard. When you stitch the cut, don't forget to put all these back in my ear. Put them back in order, as you would do with the books on your shelf. 2. The drone's buzzing sound, the roar of an F-16, the screams of bombs falling on houses, on fields and on bodies, of rockets flying away. Rid my tiny ear canal of them all. Spray the perfume of your smiles on the incision. Inject the song of life into my veins to wake me up. Gently beat the drum so my mind may dance with yours, my doctor, day and night. Thank you. 2 last poems from this collection. One about my experience as a Palestinian leaving the airport. I told you I left Gaza for the first time in 2019. I was 27 years old. So it's always difficult to travel as a Palestinian, so I wrote this poem, Forever Homeless. Before my long travel, I pack my suitcases, stuff them with some sand from our land, some scent from my mother's kitchen, and sounds of birds in the morning. And in my pockets, I put the 4 directions. My hands are the compass. At the airport, I beg the officer not to open the suitcases, and if needed, to touch my clothes gently. Otherwise, I would be standing on nothing, surrounded by nothing, see nothing. I would be weightless and forever homeless. A rose, shoulders up. Don't ever be surprised to see a rose shoulder up among the ruins of the house. This is how we survive. So before I say I'm done with this book for now, I'd like to invite Jocelyn, who translated my book into the Spanish, to read maybe one poem in the Spanish language to honor this part.
Thank you, Mosab. Muchísimas gracias. Y primero que nada, viva Palestina libre. ¡Que viva! ¡Viva Palestina libre! ¡Viva! Which one do you want me to read of the ones you just read?
Maybe I forgot the title. I'll try it back. Silence of Water. I don't know which is. Silence of Water. You know what page?
I don't know the page number of
Yes, yeah. 55. So just a few pages after the picture. I think this one.
No, this is us and them.
It should be here.
El silencio
This
del
one,
agua.
okay.
El silencio del agua. Padre escribiendo en un teclado. Madre leyendo el diario de la mañana en voz alta para tapar el sonido de la radio de un vecino. La brisa que entra por una ventana rota mece la lámpara del techo que a veces vuela, pendiendo el equilibrio. Fotos en blanco y negro en las paredes, buscando colores. El hervidor encima de la estufa. Una enorme gota martillea el tejado, sin relámpagos, truenos ni nubes. Llueve solo sobre esta casa, polvo y cemento taponan las narices de otras casas. El agua sobre la estufa ya no hierve. La metralla le ha cegado la garganta.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, how many minutes do I have? 10? So my second poetry book, these are the proof galleys of the book. It's called Forest of Noise, and it's scheduled to come out. It was supposed to be October 29th, but they are moving the date into October 15th, maybe to stay away from the elections. So many of the poems here were written during the ongoing genocide, but some of them were written before. So I'm going to read maybe a few poems that were recently published. Okay, my dreams as a child. I still have dreams about a room filled with toys my mother always promised we could have if we were rich. I still have dreams about seeing the refugee camp from a window on a plane. I still have dreams about seeing the animals I learned about in third grade: elephant, giraffe, kangaroo, and wolf. I still have dreams about running for miles and miles with no borders blocking my feet, with no unexploded bombs scaring me off. I still have dreams about my favorite team playing soccer on the beach, me waiting for the ball to come my way and run away with it. I dream still about my grandfather, how much I want to pick oranges with him in Jaffa. But my grandfather had died. Jaffa is occupied, and oranges no longer grow in his weeping groves. Okay. Sometimes, I write poems. Sometimes these are my fears. But so many of what I've written, they came to be true. For example, this poem, No Art, and it's written after Elizabeth Bishop's One Art. No art, The art of losing isn't hard to master. Elizabeth Bishop. You know everything will come to an end. The sugar, the tea, the dried sage, the water. Just go to the market and restock. Even your shadow will abandon you when there is no light. So just keep things that require only you. The book of poems that only you can decipher. The blank map of a country whose cities and villages only you can recognize. I have personally lost 3 friends to war, a city to darkness, and a language to fear. This was not easy to survive, but survival proved necessary to master. But of all things, losing the only photo of my grandfather under the rubble of my house was a real disaster. شكرا. Okay, I'll read maybe 2 poems. So this one is called What a Gazan Should Do during an Israeli airstrike. It was written again in May 20. It was published, I think, last year. So it was written after the May 2021 attacks. So many of these poems, these pieces of advice, or some stories are not working these days. So everything in this poem cannot work during this genocide because it's different in terms of its scale, in terms of its complicity. Okay, so what a Gazan should do during an Israeli airstrike: turn off the lights in every room. Sit in the inner hallway of the house, away from the windows. Stay away from the stove. Stop thinking about making black tea. Have a bottle of water nearby, big enough to cool down children's fear. Get a child's kindergarten backpack and stuff tiny toys, whatever amount of money there is, and the ID cards, and the photos of late grandparents, aunts or uncles, and the grandparents' wedding invitation that's been kept for a long time. And if you are a farmer, you should put some strawberry seeds in one pocket and some soil from the balcony flower pot in the other, and hold on tight to whatever number there was on the cake from the last birthday. So the May 21 attacks occurred on May 11th, and we celebrated our youngest son's first birthday just a few days before that. So that's where the last image come from. Okay. Does anyone speak Arabic here? Me? Oh, me and you. Okay.
Read it anyway.
No, I mean, because I have a poem, it's called Request Letter, and it's a letter to the angel of death, asking him, okay, I'll read it, you will see. Request letter. He pens a quick letter on paper, a letter in plain and regard as to form as possible with no white spaces, and he throws it in the graveyard at night. Angel of death, when you collect the souls of those killed in an airstrike, do you mind leaving a sign for us so we know who is who? Because last time my old kindergarten teacher couldn't recognize her daughter's face, which ear or arm or bloody finger on the dusty street was hers. And a father wouldn't recognize which was his child if it wasn't for the size of shoes, 28 European size still on the sole, that he bought her for the new school year. On the back of the paper, he pens the same letter in the Arabic, because who could know what language the angel of death uses? The most spoken language in the world, or the language of God? I mean, in Arabic, it's Arabic. I forgot. So here is the message, the request. Maybe he's listening to us, so he can hear it now. إلى ملك الموت. عندما تحصد أرواح من قتلوا في الغارة الجوية، هل تمانع بأن تترك لنا إشارة تدل على من كان من؟ لأنه في المرة الماضية معلمتي في الروضة الكبيرة لم تميز أي وجه كان لابنتها، وأي أذن وأي يد وأي أصبع مدمي في الشارع كان لابنتها. وكذا أب لم يكن ليميز طفلته لو لم يكن لحجم حذائها الذي شراه لها قبل العام الدراسي الأخير. I'll end with only one poem. Okay. The Moon. And this poem is about two pictures that I saw, two videos, one video, one picture. One shows the picture of a young man who was killed in the street and whose body remained in the street for weeks, and whose body cats started to gather around because it was starvation. So the cats and dogs, maybe you heard about this, they were eating from the corpses of people. The other photo, it was a photo, it was not video, a photo of a father and his daughter also killed in the street as they were trying to evacuate. How did I know? Because they were carrying their backpacks and he was holding his daughter's hand. So they were killed. So I had these two pictures in one poem. The Moon. She is lying on the asphalt, her small belly, her chest, her forehead, her hands, her cold feet bare in the night. A hungry cat paces. Shrapnel rings as it hits neighboring houses already bombed. The hungry cat sees the girl, her wounds still warm. Hungrier, the girl's father lies next to her on his back. The backpack he wears still has the girl's favorite candy and a small toy. The girl was waiting till they arrived to eat her lollipop. The cat gets close to try the flesh. A bomb pounds the street. No flesh, no girl, no father, no cat. Nobody is hungry. The moon overhead is not the moon. Shukran, thank you. This is funny because we are teaching our kids these days Arabic. So I think I used their homework as a bookmark. Thank you so much. Shukran. Thank you. Do I look nicer now?
I think another round of applause is not too much for Mosab. In these days where sometimes the ability to have hope is severely tested and challenged, I don't know about you, but I feel very buoyed and strengthened by Mosab's presence and the way that he is able to turn into art, not exploitative art, but deeply felt art, the horrors of what he's witnessed. So thank you. And this all gives me hope. This is what the real human work is, right? And Mosab also is listening to us because we have a beloved community who also have voices here.